would like to welcome every other person who is joining us, both live and online, to this panel session. We hope it's going to be very enlightening for all of you. So I think I would like to start from the man on the podium himself. Do you want to introduce yourself to us to kickstart?
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Collins Igwe. I'm a medical doctor turned finance professional. Been around the fintech space for a while. I'm currently the CFO of Spurt Infrastructure Limited.
Well, thank you very much. Kristin, please, do you want to follow suit?
Sure. I'm Kristin Wilson. I lead a people technology company called Spurt. We essentially help organizations and entrepreneurs bridge the gap between their people and the myriad technology that's available for business optimization.
Thank you very much. Kayode, please, can go ahead.
Yeah, good day, everyone. My name is Kayode Olaiwola. I'm the head of engineering of Preply. Basically, what we do at Preply is we help businesses identify and verify their customers, basically. So we help build the trust between businesses and their customers.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I think the host mentioned my name, but I am Jonathan Enodeme. I'm the founder and CEO of Zoomit Africa, and we are bridging the talent gap in AI and data through technical training in Africa. We're presently building a gamified platform to help people to learn AI and data skills with business-first mindset, all in a very fun, interactive way. So, of course, AI has been a topic for a very long time now, but in the past 2 years, it has been growing exponentially. And in fact, we are trying to keep up with the advancements. Almost every week, there's a new announcement. Almost every month, there's a new model outperforming the previous benchmark. We have Google, Microsoft, OpenAI. All of them keep churning out different models, trying to get even better. There's so many of these big tech companies giving us AI models that we're using with, I think, a great level of trust, because I don't think all of us in the audience and online, I don't think all of us read through the privacy policies and accept it before we use these solutions. I think some of us just click and start using it. It means that there's already a level of trust that we have for these technologies. So in 2023, President Biden signed an executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy developments and the use of artificial intelligence. In 2024, in April, Nigeria here, the Minister of Communication, Innovation, and Digital Economy launched an AI strategy. And across Africa, there are different, meetups just to help us meet up with the world standard in AI. So my first question would be, what do you think the difference is between AI policies and data trust? Is there a distinction between trust and policies? I'd like to start with Dr. Collins.
Okay, thank you. So the question is if there's a difference between AI policies and data trust policies. I would say that they are somewhat intertwined because, when we talk about AI really is working with data. I was talking to somebody that's building something, and he was talking about machine learning. You need to feed in data for it to give you the outputs. So when you put things, if you type in a question, the answer you get is pulling in something that someone has already entered in the past. So basically, you can't talk about AI policy without data trust policies, because AI feeds on data. So they're somehow intertwined together. AI policies will kind of ride on data trust policies because you're going to be accessing data. And just like you said, most of the time when you sign up on platforms, when you see all those long, what do they call it, things that you click and accept their policy, most of them allows them to use your data. And that's how, the whole AI came about.
Thank you very much. So the theme for this panel session is bridging the data trust gap for innovative regulation of AI and emerging technologies. And that's why I was trying to set up a kind of context around data trust and policies. So I would like to ask Kristin, which do you think should come first? Building trust through policies or building these technologies?
I wanted to take a step back because I feel like the question is a little bit circular. It's almost like a chicken and egg problem, right? Because the idea of the whole idea of a data trust is really this idea that, okay, we're saying, so for instance, we have a bunch of, let's call them toys, right? And we all want to make sure that the toys are taken care of, right? And that the toys are used fairly. So we say that, we're going to designate people who are going to be part of the toy trust, right? And that group of people or that set of people are basically going to look after the toys and make sure that nobody's misusing the toys, everybody gets a fair turn, and everybody kind of follows the toy sharing agreements, right? So they're almost like guardians, right? And then the policies are more than around the rules around how to behave, right? So how do we play safely? How do we actually interact with those two things? So the relationship between the policies and the trust is essentially that one is the trust is essentially the folks that we've demarcated, right, to take care of the rule sharing and the assets that we want to protect, right? And then the policies are essentially the guidelines and the rules, right? So specifically in terms of the data, right? In this case, the toys are the data, right? We're making sure that the data is being used correctly and is being used fairly, right? And then the policies are about how we then behave when we are using or developing that data. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I
So
would
I
like to.
say that, yeah. So I say that to say that the question of whether the development of these entities or these businesses should come before the rules is not really is almost like an artificial question because it's in the process of development that these rules are shaped and defined, right? Particularly for an emerging field like artificial intelligence, and especially on the continent where we're going to have to essentially leapfrog many of the other kinds of ethics and policies and trusts that have been implemented and tested and refined in other economies. We're gonna have to kind of like jump jump the queue essentially and make sure that we're setting up the right forms of AI trust, and that we also have the right policies around the use of the right forms of data trust, and that we have the right policies around the use of AI.
Thank you very much. Still on that question, I'll be switching to Coyote. You know, the truth is we are not the creators of this technology. We are using it. We are adopting this technology, and like you said, when you start building these things, then you can start thinking of policies to help you govern, development and what should work and what should not work. Instead of going back to start changing things that we built, do you think the fact that we already have the queue into the whole concept would help us in Africa to build policies that would then help us build solutions? What do you think, Coyote?
Yeah, I think it's actually a very huge issue because I know recently the EU Act was approved because the way I view the Act is more like a litmus test to this entire AI regulation because it gives like a blueprint to the other agencies, other offices that have been set up to actually work on regulating AI generally. Because just like Kristen said, it's the development of AI the growth is exponential. We've seen it over the years, so it's not something that can easily be like what's it called. In terms of regulation, the best we can actually do is to see how we can go with it in real time. Any action from the AI development, there's a real time response to in terms of regulation. So I think a lot of agencies have been set up. EU is part of which was is actually one of the major ones, major framework out there right now. And I feel is a very good pointer to the entire like to the world in general to see okay, these are things we need to focus on, these are things we need to like maybe show like a little less attention. So things like ethical standard to building systems, transparency, and a whole lot of other things. So I think it's actually a very good point for us to Africa to work on our own framework.
Thank you very much. So we're obviously we know there's so many advantages to AI, but there are some risks as well, and we're hammering on the point trust. KPMG took carry out a survey and they asked who people would trust to create these policies that will govern development of AI models and AI solutions. And many people choose universities. They feel they trust the university better to create these policies. Now I'm asking you, do you think it's best for the universities, that's the academia, to create these policies, the industries then start adopting them to create their solutions? Where do you think who do you think people should trust basically to build these policies or create these policies?
If I get your question correctly, I would say making policies should be all encompassing. So, I mean, the academicians, the people building, the people providing the data, um, uh, everybody should be involved. So, if you want to use the academicians, they will just be, just like you have called them, strictly the theoretical aspect of it. But in developing a policy, you would want to touch every aspect. So you'd also want to the practical side of it. So you need to leave people that are just in the classroom, the professor and all that, and go to the wider population to be able to get more input on what the policy should be and what it should regulate. Because if you just focus on academicians, you may miss out on things. So you want to like get all the information, all the data from everybody, from top to bottom, left, right, users, the developers, the everybody basically, so that you'll be able to get a robust policy that will touch everybody. Because if you just like one of the risks of AI is bias. What you feed it is what it gives you. You can also get that kind of bias if you restrict it to the classroom environment. You just get things that are more theoretical and you leave out the other aspect of it. So I would feel that yes, it's good to get their own inputs. They can help design the policy, but in terms of the inputs of making the actual policy, you need to get from beyond just the academicians.
Thank you. I think to hit the point more on the head, I would like to ask Kristin. So, for instance, we have lawmakers who make laws. These people are not commoners. I don't think lawmakers then choose people from different areas in life to come and make laws for the country. So, with respect to that, how do we then merge, the commoners who use these solutions, the academicians, the industry experts, because there is a very big gap between industry AI and academic AI. So how do we then merge all of these things together to build trustworthy policies that everyone can beat their chest and without reading the privacy policy, just click accept and move on, knowing that they are safe?
I mean, people should probably read privacy policies. Just it's probably worth saying that. I mean, I know most of us don't, but it's probably a good idea every now and then, especially as things are evolving. Uh, it's not a bad idea. I definitely wouldn't advocate not reading privacy policies. But to your point around how do we create policies that make sense, right? What should, as this is a RegTech conference, right? So what should policymakers and lawmakers be thinking about? I think if we look at some of the intentionality that went into trying to draft and then push the Startup Act, culling stakeholders from different parts of the country, getting stakeholders from, getting experts from different parts of the world, from different sectors, looking at other regulations and in other markets and other ecosystems, holding formal and informal roundtables, going to hubs and to accelerators. I feel like there was a lot of intentional work that was done to get varying perspectives. I mean, there's always ways in which work can be done better. And, I'm sure there are criticisms of the Startup Act that are fair. But I think that process of seeking out not just, known folk or known names, but going to different hubs, going to different experiences, speaking to experts, both inside and outside of the ecosystem, inside and outside of the country. I think it has to be a similar principle, right? So policymakers and government officials are going to act in line with what they know and their own perspective, but they're going to then invite folks who are specialists either from the point of view of academia, from the point of view of industry, and hopefully we can all come to some sort of consolidated and well negotiated view. That's essentially the best practice for it, right? As to what actually ends up happening, I don't know. You'll probably know better than I do, but that would essentially be the best practices for like this. I imagine will bring together folks from the public and private sector, where we can start to have those important conversations around AI. You'll notice, for instance, in places like the UK, Meta's AI is not permitted. It's not yet passed through, regulatory hurdles. In Nigeria, though, you can access Meta AI. One of the questions is, okay, why? Like, what's happening? What sorts of agreements do we have with Meta that perhaps allow them to fast track access for their AI? There's places where ChatGPT was banned and now has gone through regulatory approval. So I think the question for people like us, as well as for lay people, is even just asking, hey, what are the policies at play here, right? Who's in our data trust, and what are the guidelines? How do we hold them accountable? How do we have more transparency? We definitely don't want to, all the cooks in the kitchen, but I think as much transparency and as much clarity around what the policies are, who's playing in the field today. I think that's also something that's really useful to understand, right? Is in, for instance, Nigeria today, who's playing in the field, right? Who are the AI players? Who are the policymakers? Who are the industry players? What products are live? What products are accessing user data? What systems and databases are they having access to? I think even visibility and transparency around that begins to hint at progress.
Thank you very much. I think I agree with your point. And moving on to that, Kylie, you mentioned the EU before now in one of your comments, and we know the US have their own policy. My question is, do you think that we should have a cross-border? I think we should have a cross-border harmonization of AI regulations that is related to Africa.
Okay, so I agree to that. And I think yes. Answer is yes, because AI is very robust in terms of what it can do and both in the bad part and the good part. So collaboration is going to be very critical, actually addressing this generally. So Africa in general, if we're collaborating on what's it called, using our innovative power from different countries, also infrastructural power, data centers, the likes, all these altogether can actually be very beneficial to us establishing that better control. It might not be 100% sure over a online when things are segmented. So collaboration is one of the key things to actually what's it called, analyzing all these issues around artificial intelligence, building trust generally in the individuals and this technology. I think yeah, it's going to be very beneficial to have for the yeah.
Thank you very much. So we are gradually getting towards the end of this session. So I'd like to ask a personal question to all of us. Supposing you were invited to the legislative body to come and create this law or policies around AI and how data should be used that would create trust among users and solution providers, what would you write? What would you suggest should be a focal point of those policies? This is a question for all of us here.
I think protecting my data would be top on the list for me, so that my data doesn't just get into the hands of a random person. And that's why I know some big corporates don't allow their staffs use any AI tool for their work, because if you ask them some questions that relate to a client's work, somehow the client may get to know. So basically, protecting my data is going to be top on the list for me.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's short and straight to the point. Kristin, what would you put at the top of the list?
Education. I think there's just so much going on, and the more the average person understands what's at stake, I think the better the decision making that we can have around what is or isn't good for us.
Thank you. That was short as well and straight to the point. Thank you very much. Kaide, what would you be writing in that policy?
So I think the major ones that have been said. I think I would just add something like autonomy and control. Because we've seen basically the way AI systems are being trained right now is based on reward mechanism, in the sense that I tell you to do something, I give you this after training you. So there can be a lot of misalignment in that. I mean, going forward with the speed and rate of advancement of AI, there needs to be that part of autonomy and control by us humans to be able to do some level of, I'll call it caging of the system. So I think that part needs to be included in the day. So I'll add that to it.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your insights. We would like to know if there are questions from the audience before we wrap up.
Well, I would doubt that. As a matter of fact, I think perhaps we'll just go ahead to have the session wrapped up.
All right, so thank you very much. It's important that we have policies that favors everyone, both the big tech companies and the individual users. It's a very important part of the whole technology system, policies and solutions. So I hope this session has been insightful. I don't know if we have final words. Dr. Collins, do you have any final words?
Well, AI is like they say now, everybody is AI is the future. AI is the way forward. And what I would say, or what I keep telling people, is it's not here to replace humans. It's just here to help us make our work easier and more efficient. It can't take away what we do, but it can help us do what we do better. We can't run away from it. It's here to stay. It's the way forward right now. I mean, sometimes I always use an example. Before, when you want to do a proposal, you gather a team, start asking questions. It could take you a week to come up with a 4-page proposal. But today, if you just type a few lines on ChatGPT, in less than 3 hours, you can come up with a good proposal for something. So it's here to stay. It's here to make life easier for us, but it's not going to replace humans. So we have to regulate how we use it and basically protect our data and all that. That's my final word. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle, please, what's your final word?
So I think my final word would be artificial intelligence and all these emerging technologies. They are really great. They have a lot of benefits. We've seen them, and there's more coming up in different sectors in or across all industries. But I think what I would say is we should build responsibly, in as much as the power is something that is very vast. We just need to make sure that everything is done with the right safety and ethical procedures. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Kristin, over to you.
No, I don't have. I think they've said everything actually. And double tap to Coyote building responsibly. I think it's so easy to just get carried away. So let's definitely build responsibly.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. Really appreciate this insightful discussion.